She was just a memory, until one letter revealed she'd always been his everything. An unexpected inheritance, Mason Reed squinted against the sharp September sun as he stepped out of his rental car. The weathered sign reading, "Welcome to Harborview," seemed smaller than he remembered, just like everything else in this coastal Oregon town. 10 years away had changed his perspective on many things, but the salt-laden breeze still carried the same melancholy tune it always had. "Mr. Reed?" A woman in a modest gray suit approached, hand extended. "I'm Diane Winters from Coastal Legal Services. Thank you for coming all this way." Mason shook her hand, his camera bag slung over his shoulder out of habit. "Not a problem. Though I admit, I'm still confused about why Ms. Holloway would include me in her will." Ida Holloway was quite particular about her possessions, Diane said as they walked toward a small Victorian house with peeling blue paint. She left specific instructions. Mason remembered the elderly woman who had lived next door during his childhood. She had always been kind, offering cookies and stories on her porch, while he waited for his father to come home from long fishing trips. But he hadn't spoken to her since leaving Harborview behind, along with everything and everyone else. The inside of Ida's house smelled of old books and lavender. Mason's photographer's eye immediately noted the light streaming through lace curtains, illuminating dust particles that danced like memories in the air. "Ms. Holloway left you this?" Diane said, handing him an ornate wooden box. "She specified that you open it alone." Mason's brow furrowed. "That's all. The note says you'll understand once you look inside." Diane checked her watch. "I have another appointment. Will you be staying in town long?" "Just until tomorrow. I have assignments waiting in Seattle." After Diane left, Mason sat on Ida's floral couch, the box heavy in his hands. His career as a travel photographer kept him constantly moving, capturing other people's lives while keeping his own carefully compartmentalized. He hadn't planned on lingering in Harborview, where too many ghosts waited. When he opened the box, he found an envelope with his name written in familiar handwriting that made his heart stutter. It wasn't Ida's, it was Olivia's. Beneath the letter lay an old Polaroid showing two teenagers on the lighthouse cliff. His arm was around her shoulders, her head thrown back in laughter, sunset gilding her profile in gold. They had been so young, so certain of forever. Mason's phone rang, his editor calling about an upcoming assignment in Thailand, but he let it go to voicemail. The letter in his hand seemed to pulse with untold secrets. "What were you thinking, Ida?" he whispered to the empty room, turning the sealed envelope over in his hands. Outside, a wind chime tinkled on the porch, and somewhere down the street, a dog barked. Harborview continued its sleepy existence while Mason sat frozen in time, holding a piece of the past he had tried so desperately to forget. With a deep breath, he broke the seal. Paper confessions. Mason's hands trembled as he unfolded the letter. The paper was soft with age, creased where it had been opened and refolded many times, not by him, but by someone else. Ida, perhaps. The date at the top caught his attention immediately. April 17th, 2015. 3 months after he'd left Harborview, Mason. "I've written this letter 100 times in my head. But putting it on paper makes everything more real, more final. It's been 3 months since you left, and I still reach for my phone to tell you things before remembering you're gone. By now, you're probably settling into your new life in Seattle, building the career you always dreamed of. I hope your photographs are capturing the world the way you always said they would. Finding beauty in the forgotten corners, showing people what they miss when they're not paying attention. You probably hate me for what happened, for saying I couldn't go with you, for not explaining why. The truth is, Dad's cancer came back 2 days before you got your acceptance letter. Stage 4 this time, terminal. Mom was falling apart, and Sophie was only 16. I couldn't leave them, but I couldn't bear to burden you either. You deserved your dreams, Mason. You deserve better than being tied to someone who couldn't follow. I wanted to call, to explain. But when weeks passed and you never reached out, I thought you'd moved on. That maybe it was better this way, a clean break. Dad died last week. He asked about you near the end. He always liked you. I don't know why I'm writing this now. Maybe just to say that I've never regretted loving you, only how we ended. If by some miracle this finds you, know that the girl who stood with you on the lighthouse cliff and promised forever meant every word. Olivia Mason set the letter down, a hollow feeling spreading through his chest. Olivia's father had been dying, and he had been too wrapped up in his own hurt to even consider there might be more to the story. He had interpreted her refusal to leave as a rejection of their future, when she had been trying to honor her present obligations. He picked up his phone and searched for Olivia Bennett Harborview. The third result was a business page. Bennett Family Flowers, serving Harborview since 1982. The profile picture showed a smiling woman with copper hair arranging sunflowers. Older, more poised, but unmistakably Olivia. Mason slipped the letter into his pocket and grabbed his jacket. Night was falling over Harborview, but he knew the shop would still be open. Thursday evenings, they always stayed open late for the farmers' market crowd. At least they had when he'd lived here. Some things didn't change, even when everything else did. Ghosts of yesterday. The bell above the door chimed softly as Mason entered Bennett Family Flowers. The shop smelled of fresh blooms and damp soil, the walls painted a cheerful yellow that hadn't changed since high school. He used to pick Olivia up after her shifts, and they would walk along the harbor dreaming about someday. "I'll be right with you," called a voice from the back room. Mason wandered among displays of roses and lilies, heart pounding. What was he doing here? What would he say? The sound of footsteps made him turn. Olivia emerged from behind a beaded curtain, wiping her hands on a green apron. Her copper hair was shorter now, falling just past her shoulders instead of to her waist. Her eyes, still that same startling blue, widened when they landed on him. "Mason?" She stopped, a flicker of emotions crossing her face too quickly to read. "Hey, Liv!" The old nickname slipped out before he could stop it. She set down her scissors. "What are you doing here?" "Ida Holloway died, I know. I arranged the flowers for her service." Olivia tilted her head. "You came back for Ida's funeral?" "No," Mason admitted. "I just found out yesterday. She left me something." Recognition dawned in her eyes. "The letter. You knew?" Olivia leaned against the counter. "Ida found me sitting on the pier one night about 6 months after you left. I was not in a good place. She let me talk. I told her everything. About your offer to come with you, about Dad's diagnosis, about how I'd written you a letter I never sent." She smiled faintly. "She asked to keep it. Said sometimes words need to be preserved, even if they're never spoken. I thought she was being sentimental." "She was planning this all along," Mason realized. "That sounds like Ida." Olivia studied him carefully. "You look good. I've seen your work in National Geographic." "You have?" She nodded. "The series on indigenous fishing communities. It was beautiful." An awkward silence stretched between them, filled with 10 years of unspoken words. "I didn't know about your dad," Mason finally said. "I'm sorry." "It was a long time ago." "Not that long." He took a breath. "If I had known—" "What?" Olivia interrupted, a hint of the old fire in her eyes. "Would it have changed anything?" Before Mason could answer, the bell chimed again. A young man entered carrying a laptop. "Hey, sis, did you decide on the venue for the—" He stopped, noticing Mason. "Oh, sorry. Didn't know you had a customer?" "It's fine, Ethan." Olivia straightened her apron. "This is Mason Reed, an old friend." "Mason. My brother Ethan." Mason extended his hand, noting how the gangly teen he remembered had grown into a confident young man. "Wait. The Mason?" Ethan's eyebrows shot up. "Ethan," Olivia warned. "Sorry." He grinned. "I'll be in the office." "Nice to meet you, man." After Ethan disappeared into the back room, Olivia sighed. "I should finish up here." "We close in 20 minutes." Mason nodded, suddenly uncertain. "Could we talk after?" She hesitated, then nodded. "There's a cafe down the street. Lighthouse Brew. I can meet you there at 8. "I remember it," Mason said softly. It had been their place once upon a time. Broken Bridges. The Lighthouse Brew hadn't changed much in 10 years. The same nautical decor adorned the walls, and the corner table by the window, their table, was miraculously empty. Mason sat nursing a black coffee. watching the door and wondering if Olivia would actually show up. When she did, 7 minutes past 8, she'd changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a soft blue sweater that matched her eyes. She'd let her hair down, and Mason was struck by how the sight of her still affected him, like a photograph coming to life. "Sorry I'm late," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Mrs. Hendricks came in right at closing for a last-minute anniversary arrangement. Still can't say no to anyone?" Mason smiled. "Some habits die hard." She ordered a chai latte when the server came by, then turned her attention back to him. "So, you read my letter?" "I did." Mason leaned forward. "Why didn't you tell me about your dad, Liv?" "I would have understood." She traced a pattern on the wooden table. "Would you? You were so excited about Seattle, about finally escaping this small-minded town. Your words." Her eyes met his. "I didn't want to be the reason you gave up your dreams." "So you decided for both of us." "You didn't exactly fight for answers," she countered. "You packed up and left within a week." Mason's jaw tightened. "I thought you were choosing Harborview over me." "I was choosing my family when they needed me most." She sighed, the fight going out of her voice. "But you're right. I should have told you the truth." Their drinks arrived, creating a momentary reprieve from the tension. "How long did you stay for them?" Mason asked after the server left. "Sophie went to college 3 years after Dad died. Mom remarried last year. Nice guy named Robert who owns the hardware store." She smiled faintly. "I could have left any time after Sophie graduated, I suppose." "But you didn't." "No." She wrapped her hands around her mug. "The shop became mine when Mom stepped back. It wasn't what I planned, but I found I loved it. Creating something beautiful for people's most important moments." She hesitated. "And you? Is photography everything you hoped?" Mason thought about the award-winning career he'd built, the remote villages and towering landscapes he'd captured. "It's been fulfilling. Lonely sometimes." "I'm not surprised you made it," she said softly. You always saw things others missed. Something about her tone made his heart race. "Like what?" "Like how the sunrise looks different over the eastern harbor. How shadows change the shape of ordinary things." Her voice dropped. "How to love someone without trying to change them." The cafe had emptied around them, the barista wiping down counters in preparation for closing. "Walk with me?" Mason asked impulsively. Outside, a gentle rain had started falling. Typical Oregon coastal weather. They walked beneath Mason's jacket, held over their heads, their shoulders touching. The familiar closeness sent electricity through him. They found themselves at the harbor, where boats bobbed gently in their slips. "Remember when we sneaked out to go night swimming?" Olivia said suddenly, stopping at the edge of the dock. "You jumped in first," Mason recalled, laughing. "I was terrified." "You always were cautious." Her eyes caught his. "Until you weren't." The rain fell harder, but neither moved. Water dripped from Mason's jacket onto their shoulders. "I've missed you," he admitted, the words he'd held back for a decade finally breaking free. Olivia's breath caught. She reached up, her fingers brushing his jaw, tentative, questioning. Mason leaned down, closing the distance between them. When their lips met, it felt like coming home after a long journey. His hand found the small of her back, drawing her closer as the rain fell around them, sealing them in their own world. When they broke apart, Olivia's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Mason," she whispered, "what are we doing?" "I don't know," he answered honestly. "But for the first time in 10 years, I don't want to leave." The path-forward morning light filtered through unfamiliar curtains, waking Mason from the deepest sleep he'd had in years. It took him a moment to register where he was, Olivia's guest room in her small house overlooking the harbor. After their kiss in the rain, they'd talked until nearly dawn, 10 years of stories flowing between them like a river finding its old course. His phone buzzed with a text from his editor. "Flight to Bangkok confirmed for tomorrow. Send location preferences ASAP," reality rushed back. He had a life in Seattle, assignments around the world, responsibilities. Olivia had her shop, her family, her community here. One emotional night couldn't erase the practical challenges they would face. Downstairs, he found Olivia in the kitchen, barefoot and making coffee. She smiled when she saw him, but there was a guardedness in her eyes that hadn't been there last night. "Morning," she said, sliding a mug toward him. "Sleep okay?" "Better than I have in years," he admitted, accepting the coffee. "Listen, about last night, it's okay," she interrupted. "We got caught up in memories." "I understand. That's not what I was going to say." Mason set down his mug. "I'm supposed to fly to Bangkok tomorrow for an assignment." Her face remained carefully neutral. "Of course, your work comes first." "It used to," he agreed. "But I've been thinking. My contract with the magazine is almost up. I've been offered a position teaching photography at the Art Institute in Portland." Surprise flickered across her face. "Portland's only an hour away." 90 minutes with traffic," he said with a small smile. "I turned it down 3 months ago." "But I could call them back." "Why would you do that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because waking up here, in Harbor View, made me realize something." He moved closer to her. "I've spent 10 years chasing perfect moments through a camera lens, while missing the most important ones in my actual life." Olivia bit her lip. "Mason, I can't ask you to give up your career. Not when you've worked so hard." "You're not asking. I'm choosing." He reached for her hand. "But I need to know, is there still a place for me here? Not just in Harborview, but in your life?" She was quiet for a long moment, and Mason felt his heart suspended between beats. "It wouldn't be easy," she finally said. "We're not the same people we were at 18. "I know. I have a business here, responsibilities. I can't just pack up and follow you around the world." "I'm not asking you to." Mason squeezed her hand. "I'm saying maybe it's time I stopped running. Maybe what I've been looking for has been here all along." Olivia studied his face, searching for doubt. "You'd really consider staying?" "I'd consider building something new. Together." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Not because of what we had, but because of who we are now." She smiled then, the full, radiant smile he'd carried in his memory for a decade. "Portland is beautiful in the spring," she said, "and the flower market there is excellent. Is that a yes?" Instead of answering, she rose on her tiptoes and kissed him. Not with the desperate passion of last night, but with something deeper. A promise. Later that morning, as they walked along the lighthouse cliff, their hands intertwined, Mason stopped to take a picture of Olivia gazing out at the horizon. She turned, catching him in the act. "Old habits?" she teased. "New beginnings," he corrected, lowering his camera. "Some moments deserve to be captured, and some deserve to be lived," she said, tugging him forward along the path that led toward home and whatever future they would create together. The sun broke through the clouds then, illuminating the coastline in gold, much like in that old Polaroid from Ida's box. But this time the picture wasn't finished. This time they were still writing their story,